We do have a quorum, barely. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Porter, would you lead us in the pledge, please? I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as revised.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. That is going to take us to recognitions. Those of you that we are here to recognize tonight, we very much appreciate your presence. If you would wait until all of recognitions are over before you exit, there will be a perfect time for you to exit after everyone's been recognized tonight.
Good evening. So we're going to go ahead and kick off recognitions and invite Randy Hughes and the boys golf state qualifiers up to the podium.
So first of all, I want to thank the Board of Education for all that you guys do for all of our activities. Without your support, none of the accomplishments that these young gentlemen would be able to accomplish without you guys. So thank you very much for that. So I'm going to introduce the three that are here. We had two others that qualified as well, so we qualified our team. I know one of them is moving into college right now, so I knew he wouldn't be here, so the other one might come in here in a minute. But our state team was consisted of, we had two seniors, Eli Herbert and Jack Blair. We had two juniors, Jake Gordon and Brody Magnan, and we had a sophomore, Easton Gilbert. All five of these guys worked extremely hard all year long to be able to qualify in District 5 or Class 5 in any sport is amazing. So the amount of work that these five guys put in all year, off seasons, is incredible. Couple accomplishments that they had throughout the year. They finished second at the district behind Rockhurst, who ended up being second at state. So really good team. So we had Eli and Easton both tied for 23rd, one shot off of the all-state mark, which is top 15. So, you know, that's kind of devastating, but also a great accomplishment to be so close. Jack Blair finished in 46th, and then Jake and Brody both finished 59. That's out of about 100 players-ish. So even though like 59, 59 doesn't seem like it's that great, I think they're still breaking 80. So, I mean, if you're familiar with golf, anybody that can break 80 is a really good player, and to be 59th in a field breaking 80 is pretty impressive. So, that's that's just a testament to those guys. A couple season accomplishments. So we have some individuals. So I went back and looked at all the stats for the year. Our top 10 finishes individually for the year. Eli had 7 top 10 finishes. Jack had 1, which was a tie for first. Jake had 6 with, I think, 1, if not 2 individual wins. Brody had 4 top 10s, and Easton had 6 top 10s. We played a total of 10 tournaments, so most of those guys were in the top 10 in almost over half the tournaments they played in this year. And we play against the best competition in Kansas City, so that's amazing to be able to do that every time they go out and play. So team accomplishments, we had 6 individual wins. The team won the Oak Grove Invitational, the KC Metro, which was hosted by Ray Peck, the Grain Valley Invite, the Lee Summit North Invite, Kearney Invite, and we also won conference this year. We finished 2nd at Liberty North, 2nd at Districts, and 3rd at Blue Springs South. And then state, we ended up 6th out of, I think, 9 teams total. But, it's really hard to get to that point. So these guys have done a great job all season. They've laid a great foundation for our program. So our underclassmen and, 3 of these guys are going to be back next year. And we have a great underclassmen group that's coming up that, they've got a lot of work to fill some big shoes. So great job, guys. Great season. And thank you, everybody. Oh, no, you gotta get pictures.
Next, we're going to invite up Eric Stone and Nick Small in the track and field state qualifiers.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Just to echo similar comments, we love not only being able to be here to celebrate these guys, but to just see the success of other programs too. And it seems like each time we come, we just get a affirmation of a lot of the things that you guys pour into these kids, and then they get to kind of show out at all of their activities and accomplishments there. So. On behalf of the girls squad, just to chat about them a little bit, we were excited for a great season and accomplished a lot of things. But tonight we get to talk a little bit about 4 events that we qualified through to the state meet. Just so that to give you a little background, Grain Valley track program moved up to the highest class in the state of Missouri in 2021, I believe. And we've been qualifying kids through to that event at the state meet for since then. And each year we do it. Coach Stone and I look at each other at the end of the season. And we're like, okay, what is this going to look like next season? But every year our kids step up and go toe to toe against some of the best competition. And the state of Missouri is, if you didn't know, track and field wise, is continuing to ascend into one of the best states for tracking in the field events that we do. When you look at the national rankings and stuff, Missouri is constantly showing out with kids at the top of the lists. And so to just get there is amazing. And then to be able to achieve all state honors is pretty incredible as well. And so just to celebrate some of those things, I know we just had a couple of them. We've got on the girl side, I know one's in California and the other's in Hawaii. So I feel like I might want to be there with him in this moment. But Molly Jones is here with us tonight, and just to start with her, so Molly throws jab for us, and that event is pretty incredible, a little primal in some ways, but really incredible, and to watch these kids chuck that thing is pretty cool. So a lot of times, on a track, they're off. They have to take a trek, put on their hiking shoes, and go quite a ways to throw it. But the times that I did get to see the 2 girls that we'll talk about tonight, Molly and Madison Rust, they're going 1-2 at almost every meet that we go to. We can count on 18 points out of those girls almost every time we go somewhere. We get on the bus, we get off. They know when Grain Valley shows up, there's 18 points for the JAV crew because they know how to sling that thing, and they do it with consistency. Molly was able this season to qualify down for the state meet. There were some unfortunate circumstances with the way the meet got run off. Our first flight got to go first in beautiful weather, and then we had about a 2-hour delay, and then our girls got to go in not so beautiful weather. And Molly, I mean, she did not miss a beat. She stepped up and continued to show out for the Eagles. Ended up placing 9th there in a really competitive field. And at the end of it, it was pretty cool just to watch her celebrate her teammate. And to do that, if you didn't know, top 8 get All-State. And so she was one off, and I think that's 2 years in a row, which we're gonna fix that next season. But then Madison Rust, she was 4th last year and then 6th this year for All-State both those years. And so that's been a lot of fun to watch her, both the girls getting recruited by lots of colleges. Chloe Hernandez was another one for us that qualified actually in 2 events, 2 throwing events, the shot put and discus. She went out and PR'd in both of those, personal record in both of those. Good enough in the discus to get her all-state, which she was not ranked there heading in, and it ended up finishing 6th for us to get all-state honors. And then in shot, she also finished 9th, one spot out of all-state, but again, set our school record in that event on that day. So kind of a cool way to go out for her. Again, class act for everybody standing up here, including the girls that aren't, and our boys as well. So I'll turn it over to Coach Stone to talk a little bit about the boys, but again, thanks for your support of our program.
All right, I won't take much time, but just kind of want to echo Coach Small's sentiments in that we couldn't do what we do without, all of your support. So we thank you all for all you do all year long, but especially bringing in all the activities for recognition after the season. So appreciate that. The boys also had 4 events qualify for state. Had a great year overall. Finished 2nd in conference behind Platte County. We're going to get them next year. But overall, really good. We had 3 different state qualifiers. Talon Schatzer could not be here tonight. He's out of town. Not quite as far as the girls are, but I think he's at the lake. And then we have 2 that were able to join us tonight. First, talk about our pole vaulter, Ace Pitzenbarger. Ace has really come on this year. He had a good year last year, but he was kind of second fiddle to Asa Kime, who broke our pole vault school record last year that stood for a few years. Unfortunately for Asa, but fortunately for Ace, that pole vault record only stood for a year. He was able to break that record actually at the state meet with his best vault at the state meet, but just kept improving throughout the year. A lot of first place finishes, gold in almost every meet. We won't talk about Chrisman, but had a great year. Did a great job. He ended up finishing 2nd at the state meet, and great thing, kind of talking with him about the future. He's just a junior, so he's back for another year, and out of the 12 highest ranked pole vaulters at state, he was the only non-senior. So it's a real good opportunity next year for him to keep working and possibly go in and win it. And we haven't had an individual champion at the state meet, at least in the modern era. So it'd be a great opportunity for him to go and show what he's made of next year and possibly win it for the first time. So our next one that's here is Francisco Trujillo. Francisco is a freshman. Had a great year in the 400 mainly, ran the 200 some, ran some relays, some 4x4s, some 4x2s. Really one of the few sprinters that we've ever had that he complains that the workouts aren't hard enough. Almost every other sprinter we ever had is like, oh, they're done. It's too hard. But Francisco was always begging for more and tried to talk to him like, hey, it's everything we do has a reason. We have a speed day, we have an endurance day, we have a lactic workout, all that stuff. But he's a really hard worker, which is part of the reason that he had the season that he had. He is the 4th fastest freshman in the 400 in the state of Missouri in all classes. He ended up qualifying and finishing 12th this year at the state meet, but just another one that kept improving throughout the year and had a great season in the sprints. And then our last boy that is not here is Talon Schatzer. He qualified in 2 events like Chloe. He qualified in shot put and discus. Had a great year. We actually had another discus thrower who broke a 23-year-old school record in discus, but he was very close. He actually broke the old record as well this year. So we had 2 people that were throwing discus that broke the school record. Unfortunately for Talon, his teammate was able to have the highest mark and hold on to it. But he qualified in shot and disc. Unfortunately, did not get all state, but had a great year. He finished 10th in the shot put and 11th in the discus. And again, really proud of the girls program and the boys program and what they brought this year. So thank you. Yep. Here, I'll just have them hold. Yep.
upside down still.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for coming. If you would like to stick around for our board meeting, please do, or board workshop rather. If not, now would be a great time to exit. That takes us to patron comments. We do not have anyone that has signed up for patron comments. That brings us to unfinished business. First item on the list is our 26-27 budget.
Very good. We have a slide deck to share with the board tonight that shows the breakdown of our proposed 26-27 budget. It's revised a bit since April, and there's just more content in it in general. We're pleased to have Mr. Aaron Hooper with us this evening. He joins the team. There's been a team of us working behind the scenes for months to prepare this budget. He and I are going to primarily tag team on the slide deck tonight, but everybody's available to help answer any questions. This item is back for your approval at your meeting on June 25th, and the deadline for budget approval each year is July 1st. So first of all, I'm just going to talk about the narrative a little bit, and I'm going to do most of my talking now, and then we'll slide into the rest of the deck. But we will close this current school year with an estimated deficit of $1.5 million, and we'll have a final number for you in 3 weeks. The largest driver of this deficit is the state's failure to fully fund the funding formula for schools with the SAT of $7,145 as promised. We learned this spring that this year's state funding formula budget was built on gaming and casino revenue projections that would have set a record if they were realized. So it wasn't likely that they were going to be realized, but we didn't know that until this spring. Our preliminary proposed budget for next school year represents a calculated near worst case scenario. And that feels like the appropriate approach given some of the financial uncertainties at the state and local level. The state legislature has passed a budget for next year that fails, again, to fully fund the formula, resulting in $1.6 million less than expected for Grain Valley. In addition, the interim Jackson County executive has promised tax credits to Grain Valley property owners that could lead to an additional loss of up to $1.3 million locally. So we are budgeting for a state adequacy target of $6,800 for the upcoming school year, down from $7,145 that was originally budgeted in the school year that is ending, and the rate the formula would pay out if fully funded. We believe $6,800 is the appropriate calculation for next year's SAT. Actual payments could be a little more, but more likely, if they were different than that, there'll be a little less. In the April version of our draft budget, at that time, we were going off of a calculation of $6,700 on the SAT, but we've been advised since then that it's fine to budget for $6,800, so that's what we're recommending. So if the near worst case revenue scenarios in our preliminary proposed budget come to bear between now and October, then next year's budget deficit is projected to be $1.6 million a year from now, and difficult choices would need to be considered moving forward. If no tax credits are issued, however, we could end up within range of a balanced budget, within a few $100,000 of a balanced budget. If tax credits are issued but fall short of the projections of the worst case scenario that we've been given, it's the one number that that's been shared with us at this point, then any correction that is needed would be less dramatic. And we'll know by October what to expect. We should know better by the October budget amendment what to expect, and then we can plan for the future. Recoupment of eligible losses due to tax credits could also offset much of the tax credit losses, and any action on recoupment would be set in September of 2027. You have to experience the loss before you can recoup based on the loss. So we recommend a new budget threshold for the near future to maintain a June 30th operating reserve of at least 20%. In conversations with Tom Pizarkowicz of LJ Hart and Company, he advises that staying north of 20% would protect our bond rating. We can operate deficit budgets in the short term and remain north of 20% in reserves, and we'll show that tonight. But we need to be working towards balanced budgets again soon. So with that, you're not going to get that much talking on every slide, but we wanted to kind of set this up. We wanted to give you the whole big story first, and then kind of dive in. Any questions on that before we get started? Okay. We do have a table of contents just for reference. Followed by a slide that kind of highlights our district priorities for really over the next 3 years. You've seen 4 of these before. Priority number 1 is new. We just feel it's important during this period of revenue uncertainty to make sure that we are carefully prioritizing expenditures. But the other priorities do remain, even though some of them maybe are going to be more challenging moving forward. Our budget preparation timeline is unchanged. The preliminary process begins in October, and by January and February, things are pretty well underway on planning for the future. And of course, here we are in June. And then we also want to just show you some year-over-year statistics. I'd highlight a couple of items on this. Our free and reduced lunch count was 26%, which is a little higher than we are used to seeing. But honestly, we've had from lunch charges and things, we have families that we know experience hardships. And so this is affirming in some ways that maybe a higher percentage of our families who actually would be eligible have actually been filling out the forms and qualifying. We're also pleased to report that 81.4% of our teachers have master's degrees. That's our contracted staff. And you see a breakdown of our full-time equivalent employees. We have 383 certified full-time, 350 full-time non-certified, for a total of 733 full-time employees. We also included there a list of numbered 221 personnel who are either substitutes or otherwise part-time employees. So we're gonna keep moving unless there's anything specific somebody has a question about on the demographics there. Our student enrollment trend continues to remain relatively flat. The area where we still see growth is at our high school, grades 9 through 12. I think what's really interesting is, this graph tells a couple of stories. First of all, growth has been leveling off in recent years, so that's known. But it doesn't take away from the fact that every school has a lot of new students every year. It's just that in recent years, more of our schools have a net gain of closer to 0 for all their new students. But we still have families who move in and move out. And so just because enrollment trends have leveled off does not mean that we have all the same kids every year. That's probably a topic for another day. Challenges for the budget year that are ending. I'm just going to say one thing about this. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hooper, who is going to lead the presentation from here. But you will see the combination of a shortfall of total revenue of $1 million coupled with expenditures that exceeded by $600,000. That's where we get to the estimated $1.5 million estimated deficit budget for the year that is ending this month. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hooper.
So this is a new slide this year, but we thought with the challenges that we were experiencing this year, we wanted to start off by showing you and kind of giving you an idea on where we were at when we went into the budget for this year with the original budget compared to where we are right now. And it's kind of important to know because as we go through some of the slides, you're going to look at some year-over-year budget variances and they don't look very big. And it's because we've adjusted a lot of things already for the knowns that we have this year. So that's why it's like, oh, well, it doesn't look so bad. That's because we've really adjusted. It's a bad number this year. It's going to be a bad number next year too. So just wanted to kind of lead up with this and show you guys where we started and where we're ending, and like again for future slides. But does anybody have any thoughts or questions on this? So what we wanted to do here was just kind of give an idea, a breakdown again on how this year was, how it planned out with our property taxes and the SAT being the two biggest revenue factors that we've adjusted this year. So the first one that we're looking at is the real property taxes. We originally come in with the $19 million, and we did an amendment in October to reduce it due to lower assessed valuations from the estimated one that we had received earlier in the year. And then we also lowered it in April, if you guys remember, due to some of the commercial cap and just being behind in collections. So that's where we dropped down on the the real tax. And then in April again, we dropped the SAT $1.4-ish million due to that decrease from the 7,145 to the 6,900. So now we're going to switch over and look at the revenue pieces here, and this is for this upcoming budget. So that was all this year stuff. Now we're going to be talking about the budget for the 26-27 school year. We just did want to do just a real quick reminder. I know Nick went through it, but just kind of where our funds come from, the local funds, county, state, and federal. Obviously, most of ours come from local and state, and these are just kind of examples of some of the bigger revenue sources in each one of these categories that we receive. And then we wanted to start out on the next slide here, given an overall picture of what revenues are going to look like this year. And we noticed in the past we had just started at this slide here. We just started talking about variances. We thought we'd give you the actual number, what it was going to look like first. And again, just giving us a visual there of the split between the different sources there. So the next slide is our revenue items. So these are our major revenue items. Obviously, $19,000 in that first line is not what I would consider a major revenue item, but this has to do with the real property tax, and again, showing a $19,000 increase. Why it was important for us to kind of talk about the decrease for this year is because, again, it looks like, whoa, we're better off. That's because we reduced it about $400,000 to $500,000 this year, so that's why it looks like it's not that bad, but it really is way lower than what we had originally anticipated. Then you can kind of see the others. The decrease in the SAT is the other big one. So again, it's $210,000 less, and that's because we had already adjusted it $1.4 million this year. The classroom trust, it's kind of up. When we discussed that today, really the way the classroom trust works, there's your overall state funding that you're going to receive between the SAT and classroom trust, and it really just kind of depends on how you value each one, and it just flip-flops between the two. So this is where it's falling out this year as being what we estimated the amounts per pupil to be, coming up at $318,000 positive, and then the decrease in high needs sped, and that really you're going to see is kind of a result of reduced expenditures for our sped program.
This slide really just gives a little bit more of an explanation, aside from just budgetary changes, just more of the big picture around real property tax calculations. So what we anticipate with our tax rate and a collection rate of 96% would have been $26.8 million, but with the anticipated maximum possible, as far as we know, reduction for tax credits of $1.3 million for this year, and a reduction for senior tax credits of an estimated $196,000 this year. That with the possible recoupment that we could file this September to recoup up to $360,000 from revenues lost in 2025 after the board set the tax rate, and then any commercial properties valued less than $5 million were capped at 15%. So that may prove eligible for recoupment. That's how we get to $25.6 million. But if you just look at our standard budget slides, sometimes those bigger stories are kind of lost in there. So we wanted to take the opportunity to kind of spell this out as well.
So now we'll be switching over to the expenditures section for next year. Again, just given the overall picture of what our estimated expenditures are going to be, with the salaries and benefits being the largest portion. You'll see in a slide later, we're about 81% of our budget is salary and benefits. And then we have our services and supplies there making up the rest, kind of lump everything together. So some of the major expenditure items on this for next year has to do with the first one line you see there, the increase for the additional step on the salary schedule. So that's moving everyone up one step of about $419,000. There's an increase for a net change in staffing position. We'll see on the next slide here. It lists out the new positions and some of the reduction of the positions and the net cost of those adjustments there. And then the next line is the increase in the district insurance contribution, that increasing at $360 annually per staff member. So it's about $218, but then you see we decreased in the next line below the estimated overages that we've been budgeting for the last few years. We decreased it $200,000, basically, so it's just an offsetting adjustment there. And then again, the special ed education expenditures decreasing of about $320,000, and that again is why the SPED revenue or special education revenues are going to be anticipated to be less, because if you remember, we kind of do things on lags. And then the $720,000 decrease due to not purchasing any buses this year for transportation. So the next slide here, we're looking at the additions and the reductions of FTEs, and I believe that was, the reductions were some that we, Dr. Allen and them had determined that they just were not needing to backfill some of those positions, and then these other positions you guys, the board had already approved for those positions throughout the year, and they come to that $215,000.
Knowing the potential for how difficult the revenues were going to be for next year, we were intentional about limiting the number of new positions that we recommended for next year as well. So this 2.5 overall FTE growth is probably the smallest number that we've seen that I remember for the year ahead.
So the next slide is just the slide we've been providing, just giving a kind of a outlook on an estimation for our the district portion of our medical and short-term disability and life insurance for full-time employees. Again, you can see where the blue line is basically from last year to this year. The blue line went up, the orange line got smaller, but we're pretty much flat. So we've been kind of flat the last few years, which has been good. We'd like to make it go a little smaller, but at least keeping it flat is better than going up. So the next slide here is just kind of talking about some of the expenses that we have to incur, and it's a very limited list. Obviously, there's a lot more things that we have to have than just this list here. But taking a look at property and liability insurance, a little bit of a increase there. I apologize. And then student transportation is a pretty significant decrease, but that's because $720,000 of that is due to, again, removing the buses out of the budget for next year that were in the budget for this year, and then utilities being up again this year. So, any questions on anything so far?
Yeah, I know you covered the buses. What did you say the 470 decrease would be in transportation?
That's just the buses were the major part of that. So the fact that it's not all of it is because their other costs have gone up of estimating costs for transportation.
So is anything getting cut besides the vehicles?
No.
Okay.
No.
And then you said decrease expenditures in the high needs sped. Was that just the 2 FTE teachers and the 1 para, or were there
No,
additional cuts?
It was additional. It wasn't necessarily that it was cuts. It was just that there were students that no longer required some outplacement services. So I don't know if they were leaving the district as far as graduating out, or they just are no longer at the district. But a lot of it was purchase services. I think it was around $300,000 of it was all
Okay,
had to do
not
with purchase service. It's not
staff,
staffing at
okay.
all. No. And I believe the slide noted it was non-staffing on there, reduction on there. So, but basically,
Oh, I
that's
missed that, I'm
No,
sorry.
you're fine. But that's basically what it had to do, was it had to do with purchase services that these students no longer required.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So the operating budget here, when we get into this, so you've seen the kind of the 2 middle columns, but this is just looking at last year's compared to our projected this year. Again, the original projection, and then the end of the year projection, just again, kind of give that visual on how the numbers have kind of gone down. And then looking at our operating budget for the revenues for next year and expenditures, you'll see the totals here being the revenues of a little over $64 million, and then the expenditures of being a little more than $66 million. So if we go to the next slide, this really is giving the overall picture of everything, and then you see the deficit there of the $1.6 million is that we're anticipating for this year.
Part of the reason that it's so important that we felt we needed to put together and include a worst-case scenario on possible tax credits is because whatever the worst-case scenario is for next year influences the decisions we ought to make for this year's Fund 4 transfers. So we wanted to kind of remind the board that when we do a transfer, there is 2 different sets of calculations that go into that transfer. We refer to one of them as the 7%. And so every year that there's a transfer, we can transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 40 for any purchase, $5,000 or more, that is, as a capital expenditure. There have been years where we've exceeded that, and then the board, we just earmarked the purpose. And there was a few years ago where we had a couple of large transfers, and we earmarked it for a future new district office building. And so when we actually did finally build this building, that's where some of those funds came from, is previous years' earmarks on the transfers. There's also a transportation fund transfer, and DESE gives us, they give us our maximum transfer amount on both of these. And so it's nothing really that we play with. They set the maximums, and then we make strategic decisions about what types or what size of transfer we're going to make. But they have a bearing on what our reserve balance is going to be. They do not have a bearing on whether or not we're balancing the budget. So it's a tool. It's an important tool, but it's not a tool that fixes all things. And so with our new, in tough financial times, where's our next pinch point from a budget standpoint? And in consultation with Tom Pizarkowicz, that was when, he advised that maintaining your reserve balances at north of 20% to protect your bond rating. So we could probably get lower than 20% and still be in good financial state as a district, but that next thing to go would be the bond rating, and we want to maintain a good bond rating. So it's a safe number in the years ahead to target. And so in the next slide, next 4 slides, actually, you'll see 4 different scenarios. So for the current school year, if we were to do a full Fund 4 transfer of $1.7 million, then you can see that our end fund balance percentage for this year at 19.71%. If on the next slide, if instead we transferred only 700,000, now you see that we're at 21.38%. So we want to hold to that 20%, and so we don't want to do a full transfer this year. Now, why does it matter so much this year? Well, because if we did a full fund transfer this year and we did no transfer a year from now, our percentage reserve on that third slide shows that we would be at 18.72%. So we don't want to do a full transfer this year because not only does it risk this year's percentage, but it has an impact on next year's percentage. It makes next year's transferred lever less helpful. So we want to do a partial transfer this year of 700,000 so that even if you know, in a near worst case scenario next year, at the end of it, you can transfer 0 and you should still be north of 20% on your fund balance at the end of the next budget year. So that's why the fund transfer narrative was so important. Any questions on the transfer? All right, Mr. Hooper. The challenges ahead, sadly, they're the same as what we've seen the last couple of years. It's just a lot of them now are coming to be realized. The one I will draw your attention to, though, that is new is the last one on the list, and that is the governor has placed on the August 4th ballot coming up, August 4th, 2026, Amendment 5. There's several amendments on that ballot, but Amendment 5 is a measure to replace income tax with sales and use taxes. This ballot measure doesn't spell out the whole plan. It makes it possible for the future legislatures over the next 5 years, I believe, to begin the process of replacing income tax with sales and use taxes. It's worth paying attention to as advocates of public education because currently more than 60% of the state's revenue is generated off of income taxes. So the thought that would be phased out to 0 and to be replaced with sales and use taxes, it's worth paying attention to the numbers of any proposals that come forward. But we are, as Missouri citizens, going to be asked to give future legislatures permission to solve this for us and to replace that revenue to support public education and other essential services. Any other questions on the budget presentation? I will say Dr. Allen gave her inaugural State of the District address with the Chamber of Commerce this week, and a lot of great things to celebrate for year-end things. She did kind of highlight some of the financial challenges ahead, so we kind of got to test out some of these scenarios with community members on Tuesday, And so, anyway, it was good to see her take the lead on a community event and to present what is clearly a challenging budget, but that went really well. So, any other questions from the board?
Okay. So then that'll take us to our next item with our detailed budget.
Yes, when you approve the budget in 3 weeks, this is what that document will look like. So our slide deck just gives more of a 10,000-foot view. Mr. Hooper, anything else that you would say about the detailed? Okay.
Any questions on the detailed budget? All right, the next item is the 3-year projections.
I know that we do this exercise for our bond rating. Are there other agencies as industry standard that call for a 3-year projection? And the only reason I ask, most years projecting out the status quo for 3 years really doesn't have many implications. In this case, it takes the challenges of next year and literally multiplies it the next year and the next year. Well, there's no way the district's going to let that happen. If our worst case scenario for next year becomes realized, then there will be a new plan to move forward to prevent this. But I guess it's an important exercise to realize that you would have to do something, and you see that you would slide down a slope that nobody wants to be. But we haven't always done a 3-year projection, but is it primarily for bond rating?
We started it because it did require, it was a requirement for the bond. And I shouldn't say requirement, it just helped your rating because they'll ask you, does your board see a projection out there? So that's really the reason why we started it. But it really is good practice to go, some go out even to 5. And again, 5 is a long ways out there. But again, it is giving you guys just the board an idea of where things are going to go. So, you can see that some of the percentages out there we're estimating, we have no idea exactly what the percentages are going to be, and it will change if Jackson County doesn't do, if they don't do the credits, then this is going to look totally different.
So this is with the adjustments built in, and would you say this is a very, very conservative estimation projected out, or is this based on we're believing there's going to be considerable growth? There we go. Hallelujah.
Yeah, what are the assumptions that are built into this?
So the assumptions, again, yes, because you're kind of going into the 26, 27, and then everything after that is based off of percentages. So the next year in 27, 28 is going to be a reassessment year. So things should go up. So that's why we went up, because you go up you are able to increase your revenues the lesser of CPI or 5% for the Hancock. CPI has been around two-ish, between 2 and 3%. So 2.5 because of the new revenue. So we're basically our new construction. So we're kind of just estimating that at a growth of 3.5%. The state revenue right now, because of the fact that they have the whole modernized task force with the funding task force, literally have zero idea at all what they're going to do with that, how that's going to affect us. We do know that this year, the 6,800 we were able to get that high was due to some one-time funding. So we really kind of said, well, we're just going to put it at 0% growth because of the fact of we don't know what the new funding formula is going to be, and if they don't put that one-time funding back in, it's going to drop back down. It could drop all the way back down to the 6,700. So that's why we just kind of kept that flat. All that we're doing in the salaries is basically just a step. So that does not include any base increase at all. It is just a step increase for next year and then the next 2 years. So really, I mean, in my mind, kind of being conservative on that because we're not saying, oh, we're not adding 500 or 2% to the base every single time. We're just literally saying this is just giving staff members step raises for every year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the 3-year?
Just as long as you didn't see the footnote at the bottom, that does include $720,000 of buses in year 2 and 3. And that's because we have a pretty good list of buses that need to be replaced out by, I think it's 2030. And so that's just kind of saying, not to say those would actually happen, but you kind of got to get to the point now to where we got to start replacing some buses slowly, or there's going to be a really big year that's going to have to replace a lot.
And we have to like demolish the old buses, correct?
Only if we get the, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, only if they're using the alternate fuel credits. So if
Okay.
they, as long as they have those and we're going from a gas vehicle to a propane vehicle, then yes, they do have to demolish those vehicles.
I thought that's what we had to do a few years ago, so.
Yeah,
thank
we've
you.
been having to do it pretty much every year for a while.
Okay, any other questions on budget? All right, that'll take us to new business. First item on new business is our community engagement plan for the 26-27 school year for information and discussion.
Yeah, and what you have in front of you is the current plan. We started doing this a couple of years ago, so we have the same plan in front of you. Just kind of get your reaction if that still looks like the way you want to engage the community for the year ahead. And yeah, open for any discussion, and if there's any revisions needed, we would bring it back so that when you approve the plan, it would be with any of those recommendations.
Have you heard any feedback from the community about our current engagement so far from the past year or two?
We do get feedback from our folks. It's all positive overall. Dr. Allen, the committees that either you are on or that members of your team are on, is there anything specific from your committees?
Yeah, I think we get very positive feedback, but it's from the people who join us. And so every year we're looking for ways to expand who participates. We keep trying to send out the surveys at different times of year and recruit new people. And, you know, certain committees seem more popular certain years than others, and we don't necessarily consistently have a high-performing committee, but I will notice that, you know, when bond issues are coming up or we have facilities being built, that'll become a more popular committee for a while. So some of it depends on what's happening in the school district, I think, but I think what we do in the committees are well-received. It's just a matter of recruiting that we're still working on, and we try to tap into our buildings to parents who want to be involved and try to encourage people to sign up, so.
Any other questions on the community engagement plan? Okay. Next on new business is our meal prices for the 26-27 school year.
Yeah, costs are going up, and the approach that we're recommending is a nickel increase for pretty much everything across the board except juice. It's going to stay flat. And the idea is we would already anticipate that a year from now we would probably ask for another nickel, but we want the impact to be as less as possible year over year, so that we don't end up with a year that we would have to ask for 20 or 30 cents increases on meals. But we've had a harder time hitting our budgetary goals in food service, and so and with costs going up, it's not going to be unusual moving forward to have incremental increases. So these are for discussion tonight, and they would come back. You do have to approve these each year, so we'd bring them back as soon as your next meeting.
Dr. Gooch, is this in the black? Like, close, right? I mean, we're covering costs kind of a thing?
Yeah, so historically, in the last few years, we've actually been pretty healthy in the black. This year, due to the increase of costs, this was our first year to live a little bit in the red, which is why we'd like to make an adjustment, but just barely. So
I mean, low single-digit percentage increase.
yeah,
I mean, very, like, what is that, 1/2 of 1%?
Yeah, I would say so. It's like maybe $8 per student if they ate lunch every day
For a school year?
for an entire school year.
Okay.
It's not much. It's very, very little. And actually, when you compound that times the number of meals that we serve, this can generate a larger number, which would, with this type of increase, would definitely, if we were to have an exact repeat from this year, it would put us back in the black. So, which is why we're just looking at doing small increments instead of putting more cost on people when there's not really, it's not really necessary. It's good to stay up with the cost, but not jump out of line.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on meal prices? Okay. Next item on new business is the Director of Operations roles and responsibilities for information and discussion.
Yeah, this job is posted. The Director of Operations is responsible for our maintenance staff and all of our custodial staff throughout the district. And this is a director that is a direct report to Assistant Superintendent Nick Gooch. We, like I said, the job is posted. Do we have applications coming in already? So it's open until filled. The soonest that we would bring a recommendation back to you would be 3 weeks from now when you have your next meeting.
Any questions?
Do we always look at the responsibilities of just directors? I know we don't, every job that's posted, we don't put the duties before the board, correct? Is it just the directors?
When I'm asked.
Gotcha. And then the process of this role and the hiring of, I'm assuming it's similar to, I mean, this is more of a operations rather than a teaching role. So, but is it still similar for
It would be-
committee and all that kind of stuff?
It would be consistent as any director level, principal level. Those are comparable level tiered roles. So
Yep.
something that we do. We have processes for. It's really important from an HR standpoint to have consistency. That's how you mitigate against discrimination claims. If somebody wants to claim that, well, I was treated differently in the process, so that's why the process is so important.
I know.
And anything that's a leadership position, you know, you guys, you're very familiar with our district leaders, so you know the seriousness that is taken to put somebody in that position, and because you know that the quality of the organization, you don't have to look any further than a department leader or a principal to see that we've got a good track record for identifying good talent.
This is a role that's has been filled by an individual for a pretty consistent period of time, and so
Yeah, we've been really fortunate.
yeah, we're replacing. So I'm sure there's going to be very strong due diligence done in quality of hiring here in that role. That's a big spot. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the roles and responsibilities of the Director of Operations? Okay. That'll take us to our next item on new business, the contract for the track resurfacing at the high school. I would entertain a motion to approve the contract with Target Sports to resurface the high school track and replace the long jump pit covers.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Yeah, this was originally in your consent agenda listed with the other contracts. There was some discussion behind the scenes and some back and forth with the company itself. And they did do a review of the work that they were going to do and their pricing on it. And this does reflect a price adjustment. So we just felt compelled to pull it out of consent agenda so that we could let the board know that changes had been made. So the price that you see reflects a reduction by $50,000, correct, Dr. Gooch?
50,300. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
How old is the surface now?
So the topping, the current rubber on the top was put new onto the track in 2020. And the asphalt that sits underneath that surface predates me. Even in this district. So I believe the asphalt was put in at the same time that the school district transitioned from grass to artificial turf, which was approximately 17 years ago. So the asphalt underneath is older, but held up very, very well.
And that's being replaced also?
No, this is just the top surface. So the idea is you replace the asphalt not as often. The top surface, the rubber, due to the usage of the track season and just other usage, that the top will start to thin down, and you'll lose the tactability, or it becomes a little bit more slick, if you will, for like starting blocks and things like that. They start to slip. There's a certain amount of tactileness that should stay on top of a track, and so you'll start to see areas that will start to have problems, and we're at the point where you're starting to see fading lines, fading paint, exchange zones and stuff, and also areas where we're losing some rubber. So over time, after about every, I would say, when you put an asphalt track in or any track in, I guess you're gonna replace the rubber surface more often than you will the entire surface.
And that's the 262 number?
Correct.
So every roughly 5 to 7 years would be that amount, roughly? Like for the same thing?
With standard inflation.
So to a point, so at some
I'm
point.
just thinking from a budget standpoint,
Correct.
how do we?
So more than likely, the next revisit of this will require a deeper dive
Okay.
into it. So what this is that last layer, what this is a wear course, as Dr. Gooch is trying to explain. So there's 2 layers of product that gets put over the top of the track system, which is the wear course, which gives the runners the grip and the ability to run. And that's what this is replacing. Over time, that wears out, especially like Dr. Gooch said, at the starting blocks and all those relay transitions and things like that.
Yeah, I'm not
But that's what that
questioning
is.
that it needs done. I'm just thinking, for that amount of money, is that something that, think ahead and just kind of plan on every 5 years or whatever, budgeting that in, the deeper dive that you're talking about?
Right. So because of this has already been done once before, now this is the second time that it'll be done. More than likely, next time it's going to need more work on the track.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would assume that the next time that we revisit this topic, whoever it is proposing that to the school board, will probably be making a recommendation to replace the asphalt, the surface, everything, and it'll be
That would be the more in depth.
Yeah, it'll be a much heavier number, to the point where it would either need to be something that was most likely baked into a bond.
Yeah, that would be
My guess is it's going to be north of $1
So
million.
the North Middle School track and
That's
field,
included in the entire purchase, yes.
right. So 5 years from now, could we have that needing to be done? And
If it
this
has
needing
the
to be done?
same type of wear, I have yet to see a middle school track that has, I would honestly, personally, I would have to maybe default and see if Mr. Porter has an opinion on that. I have not actually experienced middle school track with this type of surface before, so I don't know if they have the same level of wear. Part of it is also it's used larger football season, more football players with walking back and forth as well. And for us, for example, as a school district who also has been utilizing the track not only for a high school season, but also a middle school season, ours kind of gets double used, if you will. So I don't know if 5 years on a middle school track would need a resurface, but it's probably something that I would say, if it's not 5, it's maybe 7 or something down the road.
Sort
But
of a plan.
and again,
plan maintenance.
as far as middle school usage, I just don't know if there's not as much usage as it. I mean, do you have
Yeah,
thoughts on
it's
that?
gonna be, it's gonna be less than a high school surface for sure because of the caliber of athletes that are on it and things like that. Again, it depends on the overall usage of the track. How many events are you gonna hold? How many tournaments? How many athletes are running on it every day? But the longevity of a middle school track is going to be much longer than the high school track, especially like we've done with both middle school and high school using that track. That's a lot of wear.
And
Well, I wasn't trying to rabbit hole this.
Oh,
I was
you're
just,
good.
I literally was thinking,
You're
if 5
good.
years from now.
Yeah, it's
if one
definitely
number
something that we
grows
could
to
put as a
500,000,
long-term thing for
the
our
other one
facilities
grows to
planning too.
250.
Yeah,
There's $1
we can make
million.
this as part of a recurring discussion in facilities planning. I like the committee that we have. I like that idea. The other thing, I mean, yeah, I won't belittle it. We're good.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any,
Aye.
any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next up, we will move to board policies. We're gonna talk about these almost in subgroups, so we'll talk about number 1, number 2, then that series, and then the second series. So our first one is the GCBDA, professional staff short-term leave.
Yeah, these first two policies come as a result of discussions with our teacher group representatives. They presented in March, and they made some requests at that time regarding PTO and BTO. And so we met with them a couple of times and came back with proposed policy language changes. So some, it's a matter of clarification to make sure that, let's face it, teachers don't look up policies directly very often, but policies like this, when they do, if it is a good reference guide for them on a regular basis, we want them to understand what they're reading when they read it. So we did take some steps to add what the teachers felt like would be clarified language. We also did clarify an appeals process for the use of PTO and BTO, who makes the final decision, what the appeal process can look like, and then just reinforcing that, when decisions are final. We also reinstated vacation reimbursement language for certified staff. We had always understood that that provision was in place for both certified and non-certified, and somewhere along the way we feel like some edit happened or something that was unintentional, that the language disappeared. So we're actually reinstating that language, which is consistent with what our practice has been all along. So it doesn't change practice, but it makes sure that we have it codified in the policy language. And then we also take this opportunity to level up our competitive nature for our vacation steps for directors. Doesn't give directors more vacation, but the benchmarks for when they would meet the next step, it does shave some time off of that. So it has no impact on any current personnel. In other words, if and when you approve this language this summer, it doesn't immediately give anybody any more vacation, but it does mean some of those benchmarks are going to come sooner for them. So that actually applies to policies 1 and 2 for those.
And this policy would go into effect, so if somebody's been here on section 3, I just want to make sure I'm reading that right. If somebody's been here 13 years, then they would be seniored in, or it would, what am I trying to say here? The 16th and succeeding years will yield 20 vacation days per year. If somebody's been here 13 years, they would automatically be put in the new policy. That would be effective immediately?
Yeah, the new policy language would take effect for the upcoming school year, but on our review, I don't think it has an impact on any of our individuals, if I understand the question. Currently, none of our current people are in one of those benchmark periods that it would have caught them up.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but when they hit
That's
the
a
next
good thing
bench,
if they're-
yeah.
Yeah, but they're not going to start back over. Like they would still
That's
have
what
the
I was-
credit.
Okay.
They'd have the
Yes.
credit for their 13 years. So
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
So in 3 years, they'd essentially go to 20 and not have to do another.
Perfect.
Yep.
We're just
We're
trying
gonna
to
start you
shorten
back
it.
at 1.
Right, any other questions for GCBDA? All right, and then number 2, GCBDA, support staff leaves.
Yeah, same idea, if there's any questions on that one.
Okay, that takes us to number 3, the MSBA Series 2025E, the IIA Instructional Materials, and IIAC Instructional Media Centers and School Libraries. Any questions regarding our MSBA Series 2025E?
It really wasn't that long ago that we updated these on our own, and we made some of the changes. Like what MSBA is recommending now is that there is a regulation associated with these policies that we would rescind. Well, we rescinded it 18 months ago when we last reviewed these policies. These updates really have more to do with just the growing amount of electronic resources. Also, though, clarifies and outlines the process for public questions and concerns about materials.
Any questions on those two? Okay, that takes us to the next series under number 4, the MSBA Series 2026A. There's quite a list there.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily have a lot in common. Most of it is clarification. AD really is just updating the policy to reflect our updated CSIP work that has been done. I was trying to think if there was any of them.
The rescinded ones are just being eliminated, correct?
Yeah. BF is kind of interesting. It clarifies that multiple readings are not required by law. I do think that if you're making a big policy change, it's helpful to have the 3 readings, but if there was ever a time that we needed to make a quick clarification, you don't have to stretch it out a month and a half if you didn't want to. So that would be one thing I'd point out on BF. Policy BI would be a new policy for us, if you've had a chance to look at that one. But yeah, several that are being rescinded to just kind of simplify and update things.
I have a question about BCE, the committees. First of all, the different committees that we looked at earlier in the meeting, those are all board committees. Is that correct? Would those be considered that, or is this talking about committees that we would, as the board, set up ourselves? And I'll let you answer that
so
first.
the engagement, what was
Committees.
that called? The engagement committees or the engagement plan, they include some board committees. So you, as a board, you physically voted to initiate the finance committee, the facilities planning committee, but the counseling advisory council, that was already established by statute and policy. So it's a different type of committee. It's not, the board didn't originate that committee.
Okay.
Bright Futures was a committee that is just part of the framework of being a Bright Futures affiliate. So it's not a matter of policy or board action, but it certainly is part of your community engagement plan.
I'd include curriculum as a board established as well. since we have
Correct.
policies
Yeah,
surrounding
policy on that
So
one.
maybe 3 out of the 5.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. There was, sorry, let me look at my notes here. There was a question I had just on wording.
I think, Jason, to your point, like there are certain committees, like we form our scholarship committee each year.
Right.
Stuff like that. Is
Stuff
that the
like
kind of
that.
stuff you're talking about
Yeah.
too?
And that's just something that the board does as those come along. It does talk about long-standing potentially committees that could be formed, right? I don't think there's any of those other than what we already talked about.
Yeah, the
right?
facilities, finance.
at the bottom of page 1, number 4, how does that, bottom of page? Says dates, reports, detailing committee. Am I reading that
Yes.
weird, or is that dates, reports, detailing committee actions, findings? Yeah, is that supposed to be dated reports, detailing
Oh,
committee?
yeah, that is weird.
I just wondered, I didn't understand what that was meaning there.
Or a
Is
word is missing.
dated
Maybe dates and
reports?
reports? Dates of reports? How about just,
I don't know, I just
Yeah.
wondered, just read funny when I was reading over it. and
yeah, I
just
think we can
wondered.
clarify what's intended there. Yeah, and they revised it presumably to bring clarity.
Yeah, yeah.
I think they missed something.
Yeah, dates and reports detailing committee actions and findings should be made.
Well, the
'Cause
A
we-
would be crossed out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the A is crossed out.
It originally said date a report should be made to the board or superintendent. I'm not sure that's real clear either.
I don't know if you need the word date.
Yeah, reports.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what they're trying to get across,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what they're trying to convey, because I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, I was just
Probably
wondering,
the only one who'll ever see that.
maybe.
Very good.
Appreciate it.
All right, that's all I got on that.
And our process sorry,
No, go ahead.
our process is that these would come back at the next meeting for approval. So I'm gonna ask that we not bring back BBA yet. I think there's gonna be a group of other policies that are gonna get discussed here in the next couple meetings that would be a part of as well.
Okay. So we would remove that from consent agenda for the third read.
Correct.
Any other questions or discussion, rather, for our Series 2026A? Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn and go into executive session as authorized by the provisions of section 610.021, number 1, 3, 6, and 13 of the revised statutes of Missouri.
Second?
You have that?
Sure.
This is a roll call vote, so Mr. Porter? Yes. Mr. Pollard?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Meeting adjourned.